Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Monday, August the 18th. We are rolling right now. Welcome to your week. I hope it is going well so far. Can't really complain on this end, although I had one of those moments where I was really glad that I was 43 and not 63. Yesterday, I was carrying my kid's plastic ride-along Jeep through my garage, which was a disaster area because I was doing a reorganizing, and I stepped on a Rubbermaid lid. Any of you have ever done this before? They're basically slick like glass, so I just busted my ass and fell over, and I was like, oh man, I wonder how bad Monday morning is going to feel since I landed on my right side on my shoulder, and I'm a bum, and scraped up my foot, and it doesn't feel that bad. So hurrah for relative youth, I guess, is what I was feeling. I was feeling grateful this morning as I put my feet on the ground, and then I immediately got pissed off because I went and found out that our America First representatives and the folks that are supposed to be pushing forward the agenda for making America healthy again and choosing America first and not foreign conflicts and all this other kind of nonsense, it's all theater. It's not to say that Democrats are any better. I just don't want anyone to think that I'm over here making an argument on behalf of Democrats. I think they're awful, and they think they're awful. So we're going to cover that today as well. Democrats actually think that they are so bad that they don't even have an idea of who would be in charge of their party on a national level. That does tell us that this is an opportunity, and unfortunately, as is classic, I think that Republicans are squandering that opportunity, and they're doing things like talking and not doing. So we're going to have a show that might be a little bit controversial. We're going to talk about the white man's burden. We're going to talk about the historical concept of white guilt and when it came in, and this push, which is a leftist push that has been adopted by people on the right. And then the last piece that's really bothering me, and I just cannot get over it. And so if you are part of this audience and you listen to this program and you are over the age of 60, take a deep breath. I'm not talking about you most likely because you're probably not running for office. You're probably not in politics. If you are, and you're holding a spot where someone younger should be stepping up, and you're taking party resources, or you're taking the institutional resources, then maybe it is for you. Because Marsha Blackburn is going to run for governor. I woke up to find Tim Burchett, who people think is great, and I think is mediocre at best. He's out there pushing forward this agenda that we're going to have a 73-year-old lady. That's how Tennessee should be run. The best man for the job of governor in Tennessee is a woman. Because at the end of the day, people in national politics that claim to be on the right can't help themselves but pick up this garbage feminist mantle. And everything about it is damaging to women and to the rest of the country. So that's where I'm going to go with that. And that may be a little bit controversial. Before we get started with that, we'll just talk about my friends over at Patriot Coolers. Nothing controversial about putting hot coffee in a mug and then hoping it stays hot. Actually, that's the sort of default position that when you go pick one of these things up. Same story with cold drinks. Every single place that we go, the Seraphin House is toting around multiple Patriot Coolers, from the cooler that sits in the back of our minivan to the Patriot Coolers that are sitting on the table. Yesterday, we went to a splash pad. I think it was like 138,000 degrees outside. I felt like I was underneath a flipping microscope or a magnifying glass. The guy was just burning us. And the kids were running around through the water, which was disgusting, and, public water full of chlorine and whatnot. And they all got dehydrated, but luckily we had at least the last remnants of my wife and I's Patriot Coolers. I had the 40 ounce and we had a 30 ounce, and they were both filled up, and the kids drained all of that. So we ended up being extra thirsty and tired, but our beverages were still cold. There was still ice in them, even after sitting in 138,000 degree heat in the Texas summer. Yeah, even at like 6 o'clock in the evening, it's still freaking crazy hot. If you guys want something that's going to do the job, keep your beverages cold and or hot, patriotcoolers.com is the website. Patriotcoolers.com, the promo code KYLE. It's just my name. We'll save you 10%. You guys can see a link in the show description if you want one that is customized like this one. This is a Suspendables flag 16-ounce coffee mug. This is really good for your desk if you want people to know that you're kind of a radical and you kind of think that America is not what it should be, that you have this hope for a future, and they are not realizing it at the moment. In any case, check them out. Link in the show description. We appreciate you guys supporting our sponsors as they support us. And we're going to get into today's program right now. I'm leaning back. Okay, so we're going to lead off with something that I'm not super excited about, but I did take a phone call before I got started today. I actually took 2 phone calls from George Hill. The first one I couldn't answer because I was busy. And the second one, he's like, hey, man, are you awake? Are you good? Are you up? George Hill is my suspendable friend and brother. He was at the FBI for about 11 and change years in the Boston field office, and his focus oftentimes is on geopolitics and on the international sphere. His concerns often are about counterterrorism and the way that our country interacts with other countries and what that might mean for the sort of security apparatus of our troops. That's his focus, oftentimes. And as he rightly pointed out, we don't often talk about international politics, mostly because I don't care. I don't care about other countries. I guess that plays into today's like white man burden. There's a couple of different stories. There's a story about Tim Burchett going to India Fest. We're going to just light that up real quick. There's a poem that was written by Rudyard Kipling, which goes back about 126 years at this point. And it was a request for America to engage in imperialism. That's where a lot of this goes back to. It used to be that people thought that there was this white man's burden to go out and civilize the uncivilized in the world. Do you know that? And now what we do in order to civilize them, we don't export our good ideas. We import crappy people into this country and then just take on their crappy ideas. That's what we've done recently. And a lot of that comes from this feminism, this feminine perspective where you're like, oh, but they need to be here because what else would they do? And some of the stories that we have are absolutely absurd. I've got a really, really fun one. This is I think it's from NBC News we'll get to, about how we shouldn't tax people from crappy countries that come to the United States, earn money in this country, and then want to send it back. The remittance taxes. We shouldn't do that. It's mean. Because how else are we going to support other countries with our monies and our economy? Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. The first thing, though, is that George Hill called, and he was very upset about this meeting that is going to be happening at the White House. It was the first thing that I saw before I went to bed last night. And so I'm going to read you Vladimir Zelenskyy, who is a Democrat hero and a penis piano playing president of this country called Ukraine, which was next to a bigger country called Russia. And then the bigger country invaded the smaller country with the piano penis playing president. Do I sound kind of like Kamala Harris talking to a kindergartner? I feel like that's the only way that I feel about Ukraine. All right, here's what he said. He actually went out on X. This is a message to Americans. Vladimir Zelenskyy said, quote, I've already arrived in Washington, and tomorrow I'm meeting with President Trump. That tomorrow is today. We will be also speaking with European leaders. I'm grateful to the POTUS for the invitation. We have a strong desire to end this war quickly and reliably, and peace must be lasting. Not like it was years ago when Ukraine was forced to give up Crimea and part of our east in the Donbass, and Putin simply used it as a springboard for this new attack. When Ukraine was given so-called security guarantees in 1994, but they didn't work, of course, Crimea should not have been given up then, just as Ukrainians did not give up Kyiv, Odessa, some other city that I don't know how to pronounce and don't care about after 2022. Ukrainians are fighting for their land, for their independence, and now our soldiers have successes in the Donetsk and the Sumy regions. I am confident that we will defend Ukraine, effectively guaranteeing security, and that our peoples will always be grateful to Donald Trump, everyone in America, and every partner and ally for their support and invaluable assistance. Russia must end this war, which it started. I hope that our joint strength with America and our European friends will force Russia into real peace. Thank you. No, I think what should be said is that you lost the war, that you have ceded some territory, and you're going to have to lose that. He doesn't seem like he's ready to go and compromise, and this is the real problem. And so this is the coverage that's going out there. Now, we're told, if you actually believe some of the things that Trump has been pushing out across social media, that he is not going to grant them a membership into NATO, which you guys already know what I think, but I think NATO should be disbanded because there is no Soviet Union, and NATO existed as a Cold War mechanism. That war for which it was created is no longer there. So why are we still part of it? We can still have individual, We can have individual treaties with individual countries, but this idea that this multilateral, European-focused, anti-Russia, anti-Soviet thing that doesn't exist anymore needs to exist, that all seems like a military-industrial complex money grab to me. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's just I don't care. And the Europeans continue to make awful decisions on their own. Why should we fund it? Unclear. Here's a headline that comes from, let's start with ABC News. It says, Trump says Zelenskyy can end the Russian war almost immediately. Now, this comes on the heels of Donald Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin out in in Alaska. And they had this like big show of force where they walked by all these next generation fighter jets and they flew a B-2 bomber over the top and everybody thought it was pretty cool. And everyone was like, look at this massive flex. Okay, yeah, you showed him that we have this great military power, and we do. If you think that Putin didn't know what that was or what it looked like, if anybody thought that that was somehow a threat to Putin, that seems silly to me. Like, because the United States president walking next to you basically makes you the safest person, certainly in this hemisphere. You're on American soil. So there was no threat to Putin at all. All right. Trump saying that that Zelenskyy can end the war almost immediately. And he said this prior to Zelenskyy getting in and meeting with a host of European leaders who are going to be all in Washington. Donald Trump on Sunday teased out what he said would be a big day for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy. Hopefully that little turd wears a suit. You're seeing the picture on the screen right now from the last time that he was in the White House when he got kicked out. You remember that? And he was wearing his like cool guy t-shirt. Like, I like that t-shirt. I think it'd be cool to have a t-shirt that was a black Henley button up with like some kind of a emblem, like a Suspendables embroidered piece on there. But you're going to show up to negotiate with the most powerful person in the most powerful country in the history of the world at this point, and you're going to wear a Henley from like American Apparel or whatever the hell is making those things from Ukrainian Apparel. I don't know. I think it's embarrassing because it's not like you're under threat. Do you remember the beginning of the Ukrainian conflict when he was running around in OD green and like putting on those commando sweaters and acting like at any moment like Russians were going to kill him off, and the Russians had no interest in it because if they did, they would have actually killed him off. And then we're supposed to believe that he was just this hero, and how quickly our media went after that. Really silly. If you guys have never seen the Zelenskyy special, we actually created, we being the Suspendables, at that moment in history, created a Suspendables t-shirt because he went in front of Congress and he gave some speech and he had like a hoodie on or something. And in the middle of it was the Ukrainian symbol. So it was like an OD green with yellow. And so we created an OD green with a yellow badge Zelenskyy special t-shirt. And my buddy Garrett O'Boyle was slinging that for a little while at the Suspendables merch shop, which I don't even know. I think I deleted the slide for it, but if you guys want to go check it out, it's the-suspendables.com. You're welcome to go back and take a look. I think he probably still has some Zelenskyy special. They are pretty funny. All right. Today, there will be a summit with Trump's meeting with Russian president. After the summit that he had in Alaska, Trump appears to have demanded or dropped his demand that Russia agree to an immediate ceasefire. Now he's pressuring Kyiv to accept territorial concessions. So this is the concern. You saw the tweet. The tweet was essentially that Zelenskyy wants no concessions. He wants a peace deal, but it just 100% that Russia is unilaterally going to drop. And there's no way they're going to do that. The Russians have too much at stake. They've put too much into this. They're not going to just walk away and cede territorial gains that they have. On Sunday, Trump explicitly said that Ukraine will not regain Crimea, occupied by Russians since 2014. That was something that was kind of alluded to. They don't want to have a deal where they lose, but you can't be in a war where you're losing and then think that you get to win simply because the United States is going to lean in on it. The president repeated that Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO, which is the other thing they want. The other thing we have to be worried about is a NATO light, L-I-T-E, some sort of lightened version where they are protected by NATO, even if they're not like a signatory to the treaty. That can't be the case. We can't take on another NATO ally at this point, and I don't think we should take on any NATO allies. I think we should be divesting from NATO, but we'll see what happens. The issue is that the First Lady put out this like heartfelt letter, and all the MAGA people fell all flipping over themselves. They're like, she's so compassionate and she's so great. Look at the heartstrings and everybody. This reminds me of a Sting song called "I Hope the Russians Love Their Children Too." If you guys have never heard that, it's worth a listen. And it's this appeal that, like, at the end of the day, Like, we all love our children, and so violence is terrible and war is bad and mutually assured destruction would be the way that would happen. So everybody should sort of divest from nuclear arms. It didn't work then, and nobody got rid of their nuclear weapons, and it doesn't really work now. There is a bigger concept of peace through strength, that if you want peace, you prepare for war, that you show that war would be so intolerable that you won't be able to walk out of it. That's the move. Ukraine can't make that happen. The United States could. It's like you could probably end all of the people that matter in Moscow in a split second, but we would also suffer greatly. Or would we? No, we would. We don't want any of that. Peace through strength means that you're strong enough that nobody wants to fight you, and so you don't have to fight. But unfortunately, if you have your wife tugging at your heartstrings and telling you all of these sad things, there's children and they're suffering. There's children suffering all over the world. The interesting thing is that the Russians sort of hold on to this like kind of stoic attitude, and it doesn't seem like it's moved anywhere. And you wouldn't expect them to. It's like, why would you be swayed by somebody? It's kind of like when somebody else's wife scolds you. They don't have any authority. They don't have any pull on you. If your friend's wife tells you something, you're like, that's your wife. It's not my problem. That's the way I feel about it. It's the way I feel about when people scold me on social media. It's like, who the hell are you? Melania Trump thinks that you should stop the war. So what? Nothing. So nothing is what it looks like to me. In any case, we'll see. I'm a little bit concerned only because it gives Donald Trump sort of that wiggle room. And it also opened up sort of that softness that exists where Americans kind of go like, yeah, we should be the best of what it is. No, we should probably be a hard line right now. That's my take on it. I don't want to see us spend any more blood. I don't want to see us spend any more treasure. I certainly don't want to see any boots on the ground from Americans. I don't need any of this. And neither do most Americans, because they voted for this guy who kept claiming America first. America first should mean something, just in the way that Make America Great should mean something, that Make America Healthy Again. All of these things, they all get watered down over time. And I think that's where we're going to go with today. I'm really frustrated with it because there's nothing worse than someone telling you principles and you're like, okay, I sign on for that. I am on board for America first. To me, I'm just a regular guy who hears someone say that, and I think that means that we're going to take care of our house first. We're going to get ourselves in order. And if there's an ability for us to move forward and help other people too, great. But I'm going to do my lawn. I'm going to make sure that my home is painted. I'm going to make sure that my windows are properly sealed up and ready for winter. And then if I can get done before the fall, then I'm going to go and try to help out neighbors. But first, I'm going to solve what happens right in front of me. And there's a lot of reasons why you should do that, especially when you're the president of 350 million or so people that live in this country, however many of them are living illegally. Shouldn't you be focused on the folks here first and all of the problems that we have, of which there are copious amounts? There are significant levels of socio and political and economic struggles that people are having. And you could go out there and you could be like, yeah, we're going to get that done first. Or you could try to focus on everything all at once and get nothing done, which is kind of what I always see Republicans do. They always float out these great ideas and everybody gets jazzed up about it. And then you turn around and then we all get to die a little bit because nothing gets done properly. I see you guys in the chat out there. I like that. You put your mask on first. Right. Why do you put your mask on first? Because if you're unconscious or you no longer have functional consciousness because you don't have enough oxygen, the partial pressure of oxygen has dropped too low in the cabin, then you're no longer able to serve any of the other needs. If I don't take care of me first, I'm not going to be able to take care of my children. If I get sick and I'm in bed or I'm no longer able to function, if I break myself falling in the garage like an idiot, then who's going to carry the kids' stuff? Not my wife, not my neighbor. I can't lean on them first. They might if they have help, if they have time. But it's my job. You got to do your job first. So I agree with all this. Or you could be like this guy who everybody thinks is such a great dude, and people who live in Tennessee, they love him. I've met Tim Burch, I think like probably 2 times now. Both times I found him utterly underwhelming. Maybe it's because of soft crap like this. And then you go and look him up and it's like, look, I don't need to know that much about the guy. He first got married. He's 60 years old. So he is like the youngest of the boomers, folks. He's 60 years old. His first marriage was 4 years long, and his wife, as I understand it, either was convicted of or she was credibly accused. She had 6 counts of like identity theft, and then they got a divorce. They were unable to keep it together. If your first foray is into marriage at my age today, because he got married at my age as of right now, and your marriage is to someone who is a lying, scamming criminal, and then your second marriage happened after my marriage started, and my marriage started when I was 31. He was 48 years old when he got married the second time. He has no children of his own. He adopted his second wife's kid. There's nothing conservative about these things. I'm not trying to like crap on people here or like set some standard, like the sort of, there's no true Scotsman or whatever it is. I'm not trying to do a fallacy here. But at the end of the day, there are things that are actually conservative. Like there are values that are conservative. And then there's Republicans. And Republicans always lose slowly. They don't win. Whereas Democrats constantly attempt to win, even to the detriment of themselves, which is what we're seeing right now. Right now, they're in like one of those reorganizational years where they blew the entire wad on horrible ideas. They've got no one decent in their bench. They've gone to a completely ridiculous place philosophically. All of their ideas have finally come to run into each other at full speed, and nobody can get after it. But like, is it not kind of disgusting that Tennessee, which should be one of the reddest red places there is, and when you go meet people in Tennessee, they're what you expect. They're like what I remember OG Texans to be like. Just leave me the hell alone and get the government out of it. If this is your hero, you guys are screwed. This just came out this morning. He just pushed this forward. And we're going to get there because, again, I think that our local politics, which is where you should actually have a lot of say, your elected representatives that are in state, which this guy did, or they're at the federal level, but they're your local congressman. If you can't get them to just focus on things that matter to you and represent you to Washington, they're busy doing this crap. It's all over. And I don't mean to be a black pill again, but I'm just saying, I'm so disappointed that we can't field a single person that just gets it. Keep the government out of your business. That's your entire job as a Republican. They actually used to campaign on that in my lifetime, right? That was the whole idea. Like Trump and Reagan, the 2 greatest presidents of my lifetime. One of them actually sort of stated that the government was the problem. And then you guys have cheered on Donald Trump, who pretty much thinks the government is the solution because he's a 90s Democrat. That's how much we've lost. Here's Tim Burchett, hero of the Republic.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. Just leaving India Fest in Knoxville, Tennessee, down here at the Indian Temple, right across the line from Knox County and Loudoun. You get a chance to come out. Indian folks are just wonderful. The food's spectacular. The people are friendly, and just can't have a better day in Knoxville. What a day. Thank y'all for sending me here.
What is that? And you're like, well, what does that have to do with Zelenskyy going to the White House? I'll tell you what it has to do in my mind. You're Tim Burchett, and you represent a district in Tennessee, and you're going to India Fest to talk about Indian culture. You're going to wear Indian flowers around your neck. You're going to go and talk about how like everything about them is conservative because they love family and no, they don't. They're not conservative because they don't have American values, which are Christian values. The end. How do I know? How many people were Hindu in the founding of this country? It was a non-represented part of this country, period. How many people in America need to care about what happens in Ukraine, whether Ukraine cedes territory or doesn't? Does it benefit anybody here in the United States? I would say no. It certainly doesn't benefit anybody that I know. So Donald Trump's position can be really simple. We are not going to give you anything. You are welcome to buy with your own money any of the munitions we sell, because we sell them to lots of countries, and you could be one of those countries. And if you cannot afford to maintain a war with Russia, who we don't have a declared war with, and who we pretending is this enemy, but is not the same enemy that it was in the Cold War, and is punching above its weight, and is not nearly the person that we need to get into a hot war with, then you are going to have to cede a bunch of stuff. And your penis piano playing president is going to have to join the big boy club, which is that he's going to have to deal with he doesn't have the ability to fight because he's not big enough on his own. So make peace immediately We could demand that right now. The Europeans are not going to stand with Ukraine if the United States pulls away and just says, you're on your own. Good luck. Whatever money you have, you can buy our stuff. That's it. It's at full retail. Enjoy. The United States government is not going to subsidize your effort anymore to watch your citizens get killed off. Instantaneously, it's over. It has to be. Because these people can't stand on their own. Instead, we have this like half-assed position where we're like, yeah, we're kind of like not really in a war with you, but we're totally going to give you a bunch of information. We're going to give you a bunch of our stuff. We're going to be in this soft fight with an enemy that we don't need to be fighting. It's this half-assed position. It's saying, you know what? We don't really agree with feminism, and we don't really agree with the way that the left goes, but we sort of co-opted like most of their arguments, and we're willing to be swayed because we're willing to make peace with something that's not good. We are willing to go some half measure because we don't have the courage of our conviction. That's what this looks like to me. This is what I woke up to. This is how I woke up and got irritated immediately because I do follow Tim Burchett. Here we go. We need a 73-year-old lady to be the governor of my state because the best man for the job is a woman. Literally a feminist slogan. And why? 36 years this lady has been in politics. She's 73 years old. If you are a boomer and you are not in politics, consider how many of your friends that you went to high school with are no longer with us. This was the two things that I saw immediately. My father got back from an all-class, all-year reunion in Wisconsin, and he said half of the people that he graduated high school with are now dead. If half of the people that went to high school with you when you were 18 are no longer on this planet, maybe you should focus on like the rest of your life, like raising grandchildren and being a great example and being a fountain of wisdom, which I'm sure you have copious amounts. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to run a state government because we don't need you.
I'm Marsha Blackburn. I'm running for governor, and I would be honored to have your support.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett. I'm here to support my friend Marsha Blackburn. Marsha and I were in the state senate together. Everybody's heard the stories, but it's the truth. When the income tax was coming down, the big boys were pushing it down our throat, and it looked like it was going to happen. I remember Marsha got on the internet. It was right after Al Gore had invented it, actually. And put the word out to the people, and she turned them out. Without Marsha Blackburn, we would have an unconstitutional state income tax and a government that would be overrun with debt. Tennessee is a great place to live, and one of the reasons it is because Marsha Blackburn stood in the gap when a lot of folks didn't. She is a brave woman, and I'm proud to support my dear friend Marsha Blackburn for governor of the great state of Tennessee.
I love Tennessee. I believe in Tennesseans, and I'm ready to deliver the kind of conservative leadership that will ensure our state is America's conservative leader for this generation and the next.
We're like several generations past at this point. There's nothing conservative about a 73-year-old lady deciding to go and try to run for governor because what? She does not hang it up. I'll say it again. If half of the people you went to high school with are dead now, maybe you should be focusing on the next part of your life, which is like, do you have things to hand off to your grandchildren? Do you have some values and some stories? Can you be like available for the people that are younger, that are going to be living that next generation that you just talked about? It's not your kids' generation at this point because your kids are probably in my era. They're in their 40s, maybe in their early 50s. So they have kids most likely. And some of them, honestly, could actually have, you could be a great grandparent at that age if generations held. I don't care how old you look. I don't care how with it you are. Somebody actually made an argument to me this morning. They're like, she's 73. She's not 80. I don't give a shit. She's going to be 74 by the time she could get into office. Why are we pushing this? There's nothing conservative about that. Hang it the hell up. That's called pride, by the way. Every time I see this, I want to have these conversations with my buddy Garrett O'Boyle and have a biblical discussion about it. It's such an evil that somebody sold the idea that the world will not live without you. We need this old lady. She's an old lady. She's old as hell to my children, right? Just because you know some things I looked into her work history, and they describe her as a businesswoman and an American politician. And I guess she's had a business for a long time. She started her own business when she was like 27 years old, 28 years old, like a marketing firm. She's been in politics for over 36 years. That is a complete lifetime. And what is the opportunity cost with that? Because what you're doing is you're going to throw party resources, you're going to throw incumbent Congress people's endorsements and support, because we know how she's going to vote and we know what she's going to do. She's a known quantity to the swampy crap that exists, to all the people that keep going with the status quo. If you want to know why the status quo is completely undefeated, it's because the status quo has access to the institution. And because those of you who love voting for the people that were already in office, I know that person and that's my rep. What about when that rep ages out? Why do we not have like would you want that lady driving the school bus for your kids? But you're going to have her run the state that's going to be in charge of all the school systems for your kids? Like, look, you can be like me. You can opt out of all of it. I opt out of almost everything I can. I don't want to participate in anything that is governmental. I got a DM this morning. Kyle, can you talk more about health insurance and how you opt out? Yeah, just opt out. Just take the money that you would spend on health insurance and put it into a savings fund and manage it yourself. Most of our society is built on the idea that you think that you can't take care of yourself, and so you're going to outsource it to someone else. You're going to give them both the burden and the responsibility. You want to be a conservative? Take all that stuff back for yourself. Who's responsible for you? You, the end of the day. What about the government? No, just solve it. Solve the problem. Should you call somebody else to fix the problem? No, you should knock on the door and tell somebody, hey, this is going to be a problem. Oh, your cat's coming into my yard. I'm just going to put the cat down if it's in my yard. The end. I was told I shouldn't talk about that, but I'm serious. If you have a problem with your boundaries, they are your boundaries. If you need to call somebody else to enforce it, we have a real issue here. Or you could be a leftist. You could be on the left. Because everything I keep seeing is that there's almost no difference between these parties. It's just that one person mouths a certain sort of values and the other mouth another values, but the actions are basically the same. I think I've got here, this is a good example of this. Do you remember that we were talking about how Texas Democrats fled from Texas because they were going to redistrict it, and they ran away and they went to Illinois? This was a big deal. This was national news. This was an attempt for Donald Trump to steal the 2028 midterms, and he was going to, or 2026 midterms, he was going to steal the 2028 election because he was going to put the right people in because of Texas, because it's so evil. Has any seat in that Texas House been vacated? Nope. Not a single one. Not a single change happened. I'm going to just read this story from CBS, and then we'll do another sponsor read here. Texas Democrat lawmakers who fled the state to deny a quorum and prevent Republicans' redistricting plans are making their way back, each on their own timeline. Multiple sources familiar with the matter told CBS News. Remember, the FBI got involved in this. Kash Patel made an announcement that they were going to go run these people down. Nothing changed. We heard all this big, tough talk. Nothing changed. The only person that's been honest about this, from what I can tell, is Brian Harrison. It's because he's like me. He's just a malcontent because he sees people lying and he doesn't want them to lie. And he's like, hey, you're lying. And that's the biggest sin that you're going to find on the right. Noticing the truth too early makes you the problem. And if you wait long enough, then everybody goes like, well, yeah, I mean, we knew they weren't going to do anything in the whole. Did you? Because I watched you cheerlead. You can't convert from being a cheerleader to being someone who says, well, they were never going to win anyway. You can't. Because we can see you, because there's a history of this stuff. Dozens of Texas Democrats fled to blue states early this month after Donald Trump suggested the state should redraw the U.S. House district map to secure more Republican seats. The Democrats, until now, have remained out of the state to deny Texas Republican Greg Abbott a quorum. What did Greg Abbott do? Nothing. Governor Hot Wheels. By the way, I absolutely love it. I was talking to one of my buddies over the weekend, and we made reference to Governor Hot Wheels. It's a fantastic name. I think it's funny, and I think he does too, but what did he do? Did he divest them of their space? Did he send the Texas Rangers press felony charges? No. It's the same as that character Ralph from the Simpsons, who was like doing nothing, but he's like, I'm helping. That's your Republican Party, folks. For those of you that are registered as Republicans and think that the solution is simply, we just need to get more Republicans into office. No, you need to get the right people in. And generally speaking, the right people are probably not thinking of themselves as Republicans. That line between what conservative is and Republican, the real thing is you need to go out there and espouse those values to people and compromise not even a little bit. You can't give a single inch on any of the values because all the inches were given in my lifetime before I was actually even old enough to do anything about it. The fact that a 90s Democrat is being celebrated as a conservative, that's Donald Trump. Somebody who has spent more than anybody else, who still thinks government is a solution as long as it's our government. No, we've got to claw ground back. And this is the same thing I saw that people realized, like they were like, well, never again. It's like, no. We've already lost too much ground on so many of this stuff. No, people are not living these values. You're not putting people into office that live the values. You're getting people that say things that sound good and play you folksy music. Listen to this. Listen to the opening of this.
I'm Marsha Blackburn. I'm running for governor, and I would be honored.
I mean, she's got a fiddle in the background. She's just like us. She also likes old folksy typesy music. Go watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is a great movie. And I was going to try to show my kids, but they weren't interested. You watch, what do? They go, we need to get us some of that reform. And the guy goes, you idiot, you can't be the reform candidate if you're an incumbent. You can if you're a Republican. You can actually sell people that you are reforming against yourself and people will still vote for you. And if you're on the left, all you do is crazier and wilder and more racism and more identity politics and more doubling down on we're just better people. They make a moral appeal regularly. And I've got some of that from a professor at Stanford, which I'll play you. The Texas redistricting effort would have created 5 more Republican-leaning seats ahead of the 2026 midterm. They have a narrow majority in the House right now. That's ridiculous because we live in Texas. I live in Texas, and it shouldn't be narrow. But all the population centers go one way. Historically, the party that controls the White House typically loses ground in the midterms. That's what we're looking at. They denied Republicans a quorum multiple times, got a small victory, and then the GOP wrapped up the session. They ceded that territory. Tell me how we're winning again. Tell me how we're so back. The funny thing is people will just keep making the argument. Well, we're not there yet. Okay. What did Sean Hannity used to say? TikTok. It's coming. I promise you it is. I promise you. It is on the way. And when the losses happen, then it'll just be excuseful again. And then it'll be, well, if we just had power. You had all of it. And you didn't get there. So, again, the biggest sin is letting people know up front. I would not be surprised if there was a bunch of concessions made and unnatural support for Ukraine at the White House this week, simply because of emotions, because people are constantly letting their emotions be played instead of holding on to simple principles. And it shouldn't be that hard. All right. Speaking of principles, one of the principles that you might want to be interested in is the principle of self-reliance, and then also not giving away your data and your information and not just ceding your responsibility for keeping track of that stuff. It's hard to keep track of it with all the terms of service out there, obviously, but you're carrying around a tracking device in your pocket. If you guys want to not have a tracking device sometimes, this is one of the silent bags. It's a little bit different. This is a roll top waterproof bag. I carry it with me when I go to the pool. I don't want anyone to know I'm in the pool where I'm not carrying my gun in the water. Government agencies, big tech, corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, everybody wants a piece of your digital footprint. They don't ask. They just take it. A lot of times you're signing it away. You guys can claim that back with a bag from Silent, slnt.com/KYLE. Use that promo code at checkout. Save yourself 15%. That's the way to do it. Silent makes Faraday gear. It blocks all wireless signals, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, near-field communications. Your phone is a virtual smorgasbord of junk coming out of it. If you guys want to stop that, all the signals, that means that you cannot be tracked. There's no remote access. There's no breadcrumbs to where you're at. Put it in. Drop off the grid. It's the same technology special operations teams. It's the same technology counterintelligence agents use to try to protect their sources. You can protect yourself, and it's not that expensive. It's better than getting cheap garbage that doesn't work, because then you think you have, there's nothing worse than you think you've got some sort of coverage there. It doesn't work. If you want to secure your comms, if you want to secure your footprint and use it when you want, and more importantly, if you want some peace of mind where you can literally carry that safety device with you because it feels good like a blankie, but you don't want to be putting out your signal into the world where someone else can find you, check out Silent. Drop your phone into one of their Faraday sleeves, jump off the grid, completely silent, invisible to the outside world. slnt.com. Again, slnt.com/Kyle, and use the promo code KYLE for 15% off. Their stuff is not cheap because it works. You can get the cheap stuff. It's just going to fail you, and then you'll find out. How do I know? Because I tried all the cheap stuff on Amazon, and they were all junk. All right. Let's press onward here. I'm going to tell you this, like I said, this burden, this claim, the idea that this would even be a meaningful conversation in 2025 and that this would move the needle for anyone tells you how sympathetic folks are, how soft and not principled we are. Because at the end of the day, if you are a quote unquote America first person, and most Americans should be, because if you can't take care of your own country, we've got people that are leftists, that are libs, that are interested in this bleeding heart idea, but at the same time, they're crying about not having enough money. They can't afford to do things. They got student loans, but they're worried about like tax burdens for African immigrants. This is a story from NBC News. The fact that this showed up on their front page tells you a lot. The diaspora of Africans in the United States fear that a tax will make it harder to send funds for babies and food and healthcare back home. Oh, really? Do you live here? This is your freaking home. Welcome to America. You want to be in this country? Live in this country. You want to live in Africa? Get the hell out. Nobody cares. Nobody needs you here. Why do they get this? Why is it effective? Because there are voices on the hard left which continue to invade and push and even influence people that you think are on the right. It's the same reason why I saw some African priest standing in the middle of Waco, Texas at Mass and saying, I need $17,000 for a well that we don't have the ability to do on our own, that we won't be able to maintain on our own. And then after we spend the $17,000, it probably won't be working statistically in a year after you throw your money. So do you want to light your money on fire in Africa, or do you want to try to use it here for something? You feel bad about Africa, don't you? Do you remember? It was at Sally Struthers and the Feed the Children, and there was always like flies walking on their eyes, and some cameraman was like, oh yeah, just let the fly walk on your freaking eye. What is that? It plays on a good and moral people because Americans are full of heart, and that is a great thing. But we're willing to look past our neighbor who's suffering, and we're willing to look past our own like household that's not even in order. A 1% tax is going to burden babies and food and healthcare back home. Home equals Africa. This new remittance tax is supposed to start in the new year. It has university students reeling at the implications it'll have for her family in Nigeria. Why are you a student in the United States of America? Why are you in my country? And then you're worried about what happens back in Africa. You can be worried about that. You can't be a Nigerian American. This is a U.S. citizen who's saying this, born in the United States. Igadogon Crease, a second-generation Nigerian American, says she thinks that the 1% tax passed as part of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, which was too big, would directly affect the financial lifeline she sends back overseas. Not Americans' problem. Unless you feel that sense of guilt, that pervasive white guilt. Where does it come from? It comes from this side. This is like appealing to like your Christian nature. That's the way that you have to bring people that are not Christian into your country to be able to give them access to Christianity. That would be the reason. If you guys don't know, that's the reason why missionaries and colonists went out there, theoretically, to bring the gospel. Because these poor indigenous savages in countries that didn't have any exposure to it needed it. That was the claim. That the folks that came out of Europe, they were like, we have to go spread the gospel. We have to send the Jesuits in to Latin America. We have to bring them the gospel. We have to share with them the salvation of Jesus Christ. Now it's like we have to give them democracy, things that Democrats like, as my buddy Steve likes to say. And we have to atone for the things that we did previously, which was make their countries better. And then we didn't stay long enough to keep it going better because they weren't capable of handling it themselves. I cannot get over this video that I've seen that says that that most African languages do not have a concept or a word for maintenance, for maintaining things that are already out there. Anyway, I saw this version of Joy Reid. This is why I know that we have an opportunity, we being people who are conservative, not Republicans per se, because you've got this as being one of the thought leaders on the left. There is such disarray, and by the way, the polls say it as well. They're in such disarray that they can't even get themselves together to make any sense or appeal to normal people. They don't even know why they're failing when they are, and Republicans don't even see this as an opportunity. They're willing to go to India Fest and push a 73-year-old lady to be the governor of like what should be one of the most conservative states in America. Here's Joy Reid explaining why everything is so awful in America, allegedly.
They can't fix the history they did. Their ancestors made this country into a slave hell. But they can clean it up now because they got the Smithsonian. They can get rid of all the slavery stuff. They got PragerU. They can lie about the history to the children. They can't originally invent anything more than they ever were able to invent good music. We black folk gave y'all country music, hip hop, R&B, jazz, rock and roll. They couldn't even invent that, but they have to call a white man the king, because they couldn't make rock and roll. So they have to stamp the king on a man whose main song was stolen from an overweight black woman.
Are we being serious right now? This is a lady who was raised mostly in Denver. Her parents were college professors. Like, what? This is a lady who's crying about something. She lives a conservative life, by the way. That's Joy Reid. Joy Reid was married in 1997. She's got 3 kids with the same man. She lives a relatively conservative looking life from the outside. I don't get it. She has a bachelor, not of science. Like, she has a bachelor's degree from Harvard. That's how much she's experienced difficulty. And she's out there campaigning on. This is why I know the left is screwed. The left is not making any sense. You're like, wait a minute. You're a multimillionaire who has followed all the rules that we would expect. A multimillionaire woman who had all the opportunities possible, a national audience to preach to. You don't know why that you don't have any connectivity with that audience, and you're going to blame the audience for not having a show. By the way, she's gone out there and said, I don't even know how my show had value. And then she's going to go and she's going to attack, what, Elvis? Because of slavery? A woman who has experienced basically no roadblocks from what I can tell? Wasn't she making multiple $1 million a year? If one of us made that for a year, we wouldn't have to work again. So I need more of this. I need more people pushing back. I need less guilt, period. This is a guy who's spelling out, a guy who actually is calling out what racism looks like. I want conservatives to actually push conservatives' positions. It's like, look, racism equals you give people extra power because of their skin color. We don't believe in racism. And that's why we can't do any of it. That's why we don't care about people who are not in America. It's not about skin color. It's about you're either American, you're not a Nigerian American, you're not a Canadian or a Cambodian or whatever else American. You're from the United States. Welcome. Be part of it. There's no India Fest. Do you know how many America Fests are being held in India right now from people from America that have moved to India and can't wait to share their American culture with people in India? 0. There are none. You can't find it. But there's an India Fest in freaking Knox County, Tennessee. Why? It's suicidal empathy. We feel like we have to give this away. How about more of what this guy's about? This is a little bit, there's some curse words in this, so deal with it.
Not one person alive today that was a part of slavery.
No, for sure.
Most of these motherfuckers that's claiming that they done been through something may never experience no racism in their life.
But I guess it's the systemic part that we still...
What's systemic about it?
Systemic racism?
Tell me what's systemic about it. I don't see it.
Wait, did they change what's the thing where you got to hire a certain amount of colored people or whatever?
That's racist in itself.
Yeah, I know.
Affirmative action?
Affirmative action, yeah.
That's racist.
There's some companies that's pulling that back. They're saying, hey,
yeah, they did away with it.
Yeah, they're
largely.
Like, yeah,
the Supreme Court did away with affirmative action.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I'm like, let's get.
That's racist in itself. That means that you're not getting in on your merits. You getting in based off of the fact that they had to include you. I know so many people that got into college based off of the fact that they was a part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and they flunked the fuck out.
Right. We got to put you in here.
They couldn't even handle it because they wasn't prepared to be able to compete on a larger scale.
We're supposed to.
So you don't believe in systemic racism?
Absolutely not. Listen, I don't believe in systemic racism in the United States of America. It's too many people getting too much money. And I ain't even talking about black people. Listen, think about it like this. If there was systemic racism based off of race, right? Then why are white people literally slightly above us when it comes to the amount of money that they make per household? Why are the majority of white people the ones that's on federal government programs? Why are they the ones that's the biggest welfare recipients? Where is it at? How come it's not benefiting them? Why they not working in their own best interest? Why are the ones that's making the most per household Asian and Indian? Why didn't I hold them back?
There's a million examples of why. But by the way, the idea of systemic racism being a problem in 2025 America is the same argument that like systemic misogyny or sexism is what's holding back women. It's the same argument, and it's made by the same people. The problem is, somewhere in the 1990s, a lot of people that consider themselves to be Republican or lean to the right actually internalized all that crap. And so all of these women that got involved in politics back then, because we needed a female voice to compete with the female voices on the other side, because we didn't want to seem sexist, because that's what the narrative was, all of those people are still in office. They're just in our office, so we're really proud of it. My argument is this. If you're a woman in your childbearing years and you're in politics, you're not conservative, period. There's nothing conservative about that because there's a more important job for you. 100% there's a man that can do the job that you're talking about. And there's also no one who can do the job that you can do on the men's side, which is have babies. You know, like raise another generation of conscientious, intelligent, compassionate, Christian, conservative American citizens that actually think that there's some real values that are worth fighting for in this country. Nobody else can do it. No man can bring those forth on their own. But women can, and they can raise them, and they can be moms, and that's critical. My wife and I constantly have this conversation. The opportunity cost of going to work. Let's say you make like $65,000 a year and your husband makes $80,000. I did the numbers on this over the weekend. This is something I sat and figured out. Women are like, oh, like, well, I need another job because we need to have this. Of that $65,000 you make, assuming that there's no state income tax where you live, let's say you do it in Texas. Of that $65,000, over $25,000 of it is gone. I think it's like $28,000 between the average cost of daycare and your income taxes on the federal level. So you're going to make like $39,000 take home. That doesn't factor in what it costs for meal prep, which you can't do anymore because you're not at home. It doesn't factor in what it costs to like transport your kids, additional wear and tear on a vehicle, the gas going back and forth, the amount of time that you're going to be in a commute. So that's best case scenario that you work from home. And that's assuming that you're like you guys make a household income that's at $145,000 a year for two of you. You're just not going to get ahead by having it done. You're much better off tightening your belt, paying off all the debts, getting leaner, which people don't know how to do because they don't understand how money works, and realizing that the cost of childcare is you might be putting somebody to raise your kids who doesn't agree with you, and they think like this lunatic professor does. This is a guy at Stanford. Let me see if I've got a slide with his name on it because I think I do. Here he is. This is a guy whose name is Paul Pearson. And he was giving a talk called Assessing the Risks of Democratic Backsliding in the United States. Again, progressives are progressives because they always push forward, even when it's ridiculous, even when it doesn't even serve their own interest, which is where they're at right now. It will eventually serve their own interest, and they will eventually see the people on the right fail out, and then you'll end up with more of these people back in. Again, they're in a rebuilding year right now. I'll show you that in a second. But listen to the argument this guy is making. They make a moral argument consistently. You don't hear any conservative argument being made by people who are Republicans. They don't do it. They sort of has this squishy, like, it's a smoothie of kind of like things that sound good and feel good mixed in with leftist ideas because the leftists are the ones who actually get to push things forward. This guy's going to tell you what they're pushing forward. It's why they're losing. The alternative is like a hard no to everything, the way that you heard that guy just push back on. What you're saying doesn't exist, so we don't accept your premise. Instead, Republicans tend to accept the Democrat premise, but they try to do it in their own way and say our people are going to be in. That's why they keep pushing women forward into these offices.
The attack on universities, I think the way to think about this is that there is an attack going on basically all sides of autonomous civil society, right? Yeah. There is one thing going on. And it plays out in different ways in different environments. And of course, lots of reasons why they hate universities in particular, including partisan, universities have become a democratic, capital D democratic space, right? It's Democratic Party space. And so, but I think there are attacks on all of these institutional settings and I actually think the more that people see this as one thing, right? The more the elites of these institutions see it as one thing and don't take the attitude of like, I need to put my head down, right? So they go after somebody else. Like they're going to go after everybody like that. I just think that's really clear. And like, it's not like, I don't think like Harvard, frankly, I spent a long time in Harvard. I don't frankly think Harvard was like born a more heroic institution than but I think they saw what happened in Columbia. And I think they got that particularly egregious letter, which has left them very little choice. But I think the more that people see like, this is a big fight across all of these domains. And the more that people recognize that eventually it's coming for all autonomous sites of civil society, the more likely resistance is to succeed.
Did you catch what that argument was? The more likely that we can push this back, the more likely we're going to succeed. We need to do an all, quote unquote, autonomous. Autonomous also, he just said they're not autonomous. They're aligned with the Democrat Party, capital D Democrat Party. Why would you send your children into these institutions? Why would you push your kids to be indoctrinated by someone who is making a moral argument that we are the right thing, that we are the good thing, when you actually believe something else? Because you cannot have those two things in contrast and have them both be true at the same time. You can't believe in a godverment. By the way, kudos to people on X that shared that with me. I'd never heard that term, but I love it. Leftists and squishy Republicans, they love godverment. That's where all the good things come from. Right? That's what a capital D Democrat, and that's what actually a capital R Republican believes in. If you're a lowercase r or a lowercase c conservative, then you don't believe in a godverment. You believe in a God. And good things are basically not at all from things of man. Why would you send your kids that? What's the argument? You send your kids off to to the Roman school or to Caesar, and like you're scared that they become Romans? Like, yeah, of course. You're going to send them into academia. So the answer to me is always like, how do we get less government? Oh, I just won't participate in anything that I can opt out of. Are your kids going to go to school? No, my wife's going to teach them. Oh, okay. Are you going to participate in this program? No, I'm not going to participate in that. I only want people who are not part of the current system. I want non-incumbents to be voted in. I want people who actually do not go out there and say, well, you're part of this institution. We need people that have institutional knowledge. I'd rather them burn it all down. I'd rather them come in and say, oh, I don't know how this works. Why did we do it this way? That's stupid. Let's pass laws to break it. Let's pass laws to rescind this. The best Congress that I could have would be, well, there's the two best. The first one would be, we're going to revoke everything and build it up from scratch in 2 years. I guarantee you we could think of a pretty decent set of systems to replace the laws we need and get rid of some of the antiquated garbage. That'd be awesome. The alternative is, and the more reasonable, for every law that you pass, 2 have to be taken off the books. That'd be great too. These people, like, they worship a system. Again, I promise you, I would show you that it's not working. It's not working. Look, this is a failing model. The left has already proved it to us. So let me show you what it looks like when they don't even know who's in charge anymore. That's how I know that this is an opportunity to win. And what we're seeing instead is like squishiness and softness.
Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. What are we talking about here? The national early poll leader, 25% plus. Normally, that's where Democrats are. Biden was at 25% plus in 2020. Hillary Clinton was in 08 and 16. Gore was in 00 and 04. At this particular point, there is no one in the Democratic race for president who's polling at 25% plus. The water is quite warm. If you're a Democrat potentially thinking about running in 2028, jump right in, because at this point, there is no front runner.
What do you think? Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list, is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all 3. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the
Why does that guy talk like this when he goes out there and talks about these numbers? What do? I ask myself a rhetorical question and then I give one. This performative garbage, like even CNN is giving you a reason why people don't want to watch CNN. I only go there because sometimes they have some interesting clip. That's interesting to me in so much as it shows 30 points underwater means that there is an opportunity. That's what that says. There's a bunch of people that said, hey, my party sucks and our ideas are not good and the people we put forward are not good. And so what do Republicans do? They go, we see a historic opportunity here where people hate the opposition party, hate what they are putting forward. Maybe we should be weak, soft, squishy, and do nothing about it. That's what we should do. Because if we upset the status quo, then we wouldn't know that the outcome is going to continue the same as it was before. We might be in uncharted territory where we actually accomplish the thing that we said. God freaking forbid. What does that look like? It looks like this. The draft of the Make America Healthy Again report. It treads lightly on pesticides and processed foods. The one thing that I remember from our RFK input was that Americans are fat, they are unhealthy, that there are processed foods, that there are poisons that are out there in the form of colors and dyes and pesticides being used on our crops and our grains, that there is garbage in our food supply, and it is making Americans soft, weak, fat, slow, stupid. How do we fix that? We make America healthy again. And everyone went, yeah, keep our babies safe, give our children real food, take the garbage off the shelves. People were really into that. People who should want a bunch of autonomy. If you're a conservative, you're like, well, I just don't eat that shit. That's not for me. Instead, what they were like, yeah, the government should ban evil, bad stuff. So what does this report say? It's a draft. It's not the final. There's a possibility that they have some way to revise this. But the Trump administration's strategy to, quote unquote, make America healthy again will bypass aggressive actions on farm use pesticides and regulatory crackdowns on ultra-processed foods, according to a draft document that CNN obtained. So someone leaked it and showed that they were going to soft pedal the stuff that they were hard on during the campaign. The MAHA Commission, led by U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is set to release their final draft in the coming weeks, recommending solutions for addressing chronic problems and chronic disease in American children. Seeing fat kids, obese children under the age of teenage years is heartbreaking. Go out and see fat kids and look at them and go like, what on earth are these kids doing? Why are they like this? You can go to a splash pad. I did this. It's like water coming out of the ground. It's like the simplest thing in the world. It's the 2025 version of opening up a fire hydrant and spraying water into and having the kids run around in the street, right? Except it's out of traffic and people can drive by. I saw a 400-pound kid who was was probably like a young teenager, 13, 14 years old. Couldn't even flip and stand in the water. He was sitting in a damn chair that he dragged in there so he could sit and get the water all over him. Not good for him. Not good for the kids around him. Not good for the parents that have to feed him. Horrible. And don't tell me that just came from him just like sitting around and you guys are on the chat side saying, oh, it's because they're playing with their phones and video games. We had video games when I was a kid. It just wasn't the default entertainment. That's not it. There's garbage in food. And I actually thought that we had somebody out there that was like dead set on it. What was he set on? Vaccine problems, additives and chemicals that were part of our pharmaceutical industry that are not solving it. And then the second piece of it is garbage in, garbage out. I remember my dad saying this when I was a kid. He was just like, whatever you put in your body is the fuel that's going to fuel your performance in whatever athleticism you did. I always thought about it that way. And even though I'm like a world-class eater of junk food, if I had an opportunity, less and less it's interesting to me. The more you know about what's in it, you're like, oh, God, what is it doing? Feminized hormones? That doesn't sound healthy for me. What is it? What is the actual output when I put it into my kids' food supply and they eat it and then their behavior is immediately garbage or slovenly? It's really sad. This is the second installment from the MAHA Commission. They issued a report laying out the main culprits driving chronic disease. If you're going to soft pedal things like pharmaceuticals and pesticides, if you're going to not talk about how ultra-processed foods, or what I like to call food-like products, are a big problem in this country, they're not the same when you go other places, by the way. And that's the thing that people have been kind of talking about. If you just eat real food, there's no diet required. Almost none. So what do people want to do? They want a pill. They want some quick fix, something that's going to end up like degenerating your heart muscle or your brain. It's going to end up killing you a different way. The solution is eating real food. We used to joke about a thing called the 6 Mile diet, my buddies and I, when I was in the military. It's like, what do you eat? I'm like, whatever I want. I can eat anything. But like my anything was like fruits, yogurts, a handful of Pop-Tarts with their crap. But like at the end of the day, they're probably not the worst thing in the world compared to what's out there today. I'd eat a Pop-Tart every day or something like that. At 27, I can get away with that. At 31, I couldn't. At 43, I sure as hell can't. At 60-something, neither can you. Like, you just can't. We're not even, like, the things that are in our food are not even food. I found this great Joe Rogan clip talking about how they discovered something called potassium bromate, which is in fortification. It's a commercial binding agent that they put in dough. And these guys are blown away by what it does and what it can do. We put food-like products in so much of it. If you go in there and you read, and it's like, how many things are, you'll grab something and be like, oh, that's a good-looking package. It looks like a package of food that I might eat. The fact that it's in a package is already problematic. There's a reason why my wife has started milling all of our own grains. It's to get away from exactly what these guys are soft peddling when you talk about it. And so in a historic opportunity to go and solve a problem where you're like, Americans want it. Nobody wants to be fat and unhealthy. Everybody should agree on that. Who's going to end up winning? Pesticide companies. Big agriculture folks. That's where it's going to go. The fact that it is more expensive to buy non-chemically treated anything at a farmer's market than it is to buy commercially produced junk is a failure in this country. And that's what I thought the RFK Jr. added to the Trump ticket was going to bring. Like at least a focus on that, where people could say, hey, maybe we could, organic or otherwise, let's have less crap. Or we could just put potassium bromate in everything and we could eat food that makes us sick. How many times have you gone out to a meal? We do this all the time in my house because we eat almost all regular foods. It's like chicken, it's just chicken. And some sort of marinade on there. It's going to have salt, pepper, maybe some olive oil, something like that. Maybe you throw some vinegar in there. Maybe there's like some kind of balsamic. Fine. We'll make a little marinade. Chicken, straight rice with nothing else. Not a lot of extra crap. Then you go out for a meal and you're like, oh, that tasted really good. And then you drive home and you're like, I feel like death. It's universal. Every time I go to a restaurant now and I eat food, I feel awful about it because none of the stuff that we're eating today is even food. I thought that's what we were going to do. We were going to call out the stuff that was in it, and they're not going to do it. They're going to take this historic opportunity of disorganized government from the left. There's no real opposition coming out from the hard side. They're out there still focused on racism and slavery in 2025. And we're going to soft pedal ultra-processed foods and pesticides. Here's Joe Rogan being blown away by something. I think this is also worthwhile.
Yeah. He was telling me that it's not even legal in Europe to have the bromate. I didn't know what the fuck bromate definitely was. Yeah. He goes, it's stuff they put in the dough to make it last longer and this and that. Mm-hmm. This kid has such balls where he started importing twice as much for a flour, Caputo flour. Dude, I don't know much. I know a lot about this. I'm out espresso. He tells me the whole thing about it.
You feel different if you eat that flour.
I'll eat this shit on the way to go train at my school. And I'm not doing that with Pietro's, no offense. I'm not doing that with others. It's so good.
Potassium bromate, a flour additive used to strengthen dough, may have potential health risks. While it's legal in the U.S., it's banned in many other countries due to concerns about its potential carcinogenic effects. Studies have linked it to kidney and thyroid cancers in animals. Well, fucking duh. And it's been associated with genotoxic and nephrotoxic effects in both animal models and humans. Acute symptoms from ingestion can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain.
And they put this in our flour.
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
That's crazy.
So out of all
causes changes in DNA and potentially lead to mutations.
Guys.
What the fuck?
I'm telling you, man.
Look at that fucking statement.
That's crazy.
Dude, that's why, man. I
notice it's placed at the end.
Give these kids so much credit. Nobody does this. People they can do this. Far. They can import the flour. It's just more, but this kid's killing it. And it's fucking, and it's such a difference, man.
Oh, wait, if you eat real food, it makes you feel better about it instead of eating poison and toxins? Yeah, it's shocking. But seriously, tell me more about the 1% tax we're going to put on African immigrants who send their money back home and how bad that is. We can't even fix the simple stuff right in front of us. So I don't want to hear about the problems about other countries. I want to hear about this. And I'm going to just end with this little discussion about, or a quick little kind of highlight. We'll put it over on the local side. So if you guys want to read these articles, kyleserafin.com is the locals piece. It'll be in the link for today's video. This concept of white guilt, that people need to feel guilty about being colonial settlers. First of all, the idea of white is bizarre to me because the concept of whiteness is relatively new. And the people who are involved in that whiteness is also new. If you guys don't realize this, my wife's joke that we've always had as a couple is that, like, when she was when we were still dating, maybe we were just married, she would joke to me that she wasn't all white because she was Italian. She has an Italian side of her family who were not white people. Irish people were not well thought of from like 100 years ago. You guys realize that the creeping definition of whiteness is pretty amazing. But if you want to read something really wild, we'll put this over here. I have a leftist interpretation of The White Man's Burden by Rudyard Kipling. And it was an appeal in, let's see, it was in 1897, revised in 1899. And it was an appeal to the Americans to pick up the white man's burden, which had previously been borne by the UK, to go out and civilize. This concept of white guilt is pretty wild, that we should be worried about African immigrants who are not able to send money back home because we have taxes on you taking our cash and sending it out of the country, that you come here and earn and then you benefit somewhere else. By the way, they do that in India. They do it in, like, that's a huge chunk of the Mexican economy. If you're going to do America first, the thought would be, if you're going to do America first, you would do America healthy. That would be big. Having your population not being a bunch of fat slobs who are eating poison, which they wouldn't even allow in most of these countries, for whatever it's worth. You can't even sell our products there. And then you're going to not feel sorry about being what you are, which is that we export some of the best things in the world. That the United States has almost single-handedly raised the world out of poverty. Instead, you have this concept of white guilt, which sits out there. It's a legacy of making you feel guilty for simply existing in a place that's better. And you have to apologize for your ancestors' actions. There's these, like, there's an ugly movement that's going to brew out of this, by the way. And it's a nasty nationalism. And I'm seeing some of these people, and people are crying about it. Like, how are you deporting these people? They're just coming to the United States to work. You know what? Previously, you came to the United States to work. You either worked or you died. That was the Ben Shapiro tactic. And I believe it was actually pretty reasonable. With no safety net, nobody in America, nobody on the conservative side cares if you come to this country. If we have no immigration rules, but also no safety net, come on in, see what happens. Sink or swim. You might die on the side of the road. You might die underneath the railroad. You might be part of the railroad system on the berm that keeps the railroad up because you worked yourself to death trying to give your future offspring an opportunity. That's not what we have right now. We have this white guilt along with the burden. So they've added something to the burden. Not go out there and civilize the world and bring them the things that you have been able to find. Primarily, by the way, it was all Christianity, which is all about, can you deny self? Do you have delayed gratification? It's a big chunk of it. Don't give in to hedonism. Have discipline. That's what it was about. Now they act like your burden is that whatever you have, you should just feel bad about it. So they prey on your Christian ideology of caring for your neighbors when you forgot to care for the neighbor that was right next to you, which is why we have homeless vets in this country. And we're still worried about a 1% freaking remittance tax to Africa. In any case, I'll put the full text. If you've never read it, if you've never read The White Man's Burden and heard some of this, it used to be, it was actually an appeal to go conquer more places. If you guys don't know about that. And that's been flipped on its head. All right. I'm going to end with something that I think is kind of funny. It's a comedian, because we like to do a little bit of a palate cleanse. At the end of the day, even the people on the political left, they actually do know that what they're doing is unsustainable. They're just going to continue it as long as it's allowed, which is why that opportunity exists right now. The iron is hot. Again, if the Democrat National Party is in disarray, if the policies are junk and people don't like them, even within their own party, if you have a chance to go do things strongly and you don't, like the folks in Texas right now, that are coming back and they're going to be able to maintain their seat. They're going to be able to vote however they want. And it was all just a big show. The answer is not more of the same people who have been in charge. Vivek Ramaswamy, who many of you guys will be like, yeah, he was probably at India Fest. He probably was. That guy actually was saying the right thing. There's a reason why what he was saying was resonating with people, because it was realistic that this country needed a 1776 moment where people said, we're throwing off the yoke of what has been previously. It did not work. You guys have ruined our system to the point where we need to try something completely new. And everyone was like, yeah, completely new. Let's do it. By doing the same crap. By going out there and bowing to pesticide lobbyists and big agriculture and processed food companies. It was a major, major opportunity. But what we could have had in this, like what we saw in the first probably week of the Trump administration after the inauguration was like, oh my God, we might actually get the thing he said. And it's turned out, instead of being a U-turn, it's turned out into a speed bump where we're just slowing down the same agenda. And we're just slowly going to leak this crap out again. In any case, at the end of the day, people on the left actually do know that they can't survive without real things. So I'm going to play a little comedian kind of pointing that out to these folks, that they're unsurvivable without actual conservative values. Before we do, just remind you guys can support the program by going to kyleserafin.com. Join us up our locals channel. You can support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing over on X, over on YouTube, and on Rumble as well. It's rumble.com/KyleSerafin, or it's youtube.com/@KyleSerafin. Appreciate for those of you that have joined up there. We appreciate all you guys watching. I want to leave it on a lighter note here. Again, the opportunity exists. This is not even a new clip. This is from 2022. So this was like year number 2 of the Biden administration. People used to know this. They still actually do deep down know this. There's a reason why this stuff all resonates. And even folks that live in illogical places like New York or New Jersey, and all you that live there and try to tell me like, oh, I'm doing the best I can. No. You live in a crazy place, because your place cannot exist without people that actually do the thing that you talk about. Here's a comedian making fun of libs for fun.
Going home for Christmas tomorrow, going back to the Midwest, the good part of the country. And my family's all like farmers and well drillers. My family lives in like the type of small town that still thinks Dippin' Dots are the ice cream of the future, you know? They're like, if the Democrats gave us Dippin' Dots, we wouldn't need fentanyl. Oh, we love mocking middle America, don't we, New York? Don't we? They're so stupid, aren't they? They also grow all your food, don't they, you little f***ers, don't they? You little soft-handed liberal scum. You'd bleed if you looked at a shovel, you little c***s, wouldn't you? You don't do a single useful thing for the planet, you little f***ers, isn't that true? You'd die in a day without Republicans, wouldn't you? Yeah. You can't eat a podcast, can you? Yeah. No protein in slam poetry, is there? Yeah. I don't agree with Republicans, but good luck finding a woke plumber. Good luck finding a 50-year-old guy with his ass hanging out who's like, free Britney. That's what I hate about New York. People think they're so tough here. It's so annoying. They're like, you can make it in New York. You can make it anywhere. Nah, you'd die in a day on my uncle's farm, man. He doesn't have clean drinking water, sriracha, or feminism, right? Well, he has sriracha. He calls it Chinaman ketchup. Like, my uncle might not be woke, but he's awake at 5 a.m. every day, harvesting those little brown organic eggs you love, right? And he's whispering to every single one, I wish you were white.
I like everything about what that guy just said. And I also like that he's calling about, and they're laughing about it because that's the reality of it. The reality of it is like hard skills still win. And yeah, you can't exist. All that stuff is propped up. That guy at Stanford, propped up, only gets to exist if you pay for it. And right now, the only reason that you pay for it is because the people that we put in there that theoretically have an opportunity to win, they refuse to. So there you go. That's a sad way to start our Monday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I look forward to seeing what the hell this brings. And hopefully our president does America first. Guys, go out there and share that if you can. If you want to push social media stuff, especially those of you on True Social. America first means we don't pay for Ukraine's stupid war. And we don't let the piano playing president dictate how Americans do it. Someone say that 5 times fast. Make a clip. All right. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.